All right, welcome to another episode of the Pinpoint Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Fazil Morsi. As always, our shows are sponsored by Pinpoint Skip. We're a data company that provides lists of potentially motivated sellers for real estate investors and realtors. If you ever have any questions or want to take a look at us, it's pinpointskip.com. I'm excited for our next guest, Ross Alcorn. Ross is I don't know how to explain it, a credit specialist that helps entrepreneurs and real estate investors just maximize the benefits of their cards and their spending. Kind of give you a peek behind the curtain. Every guest that I have on the show, like I ask them first and foremost, what kind of value, are you trying to get out of this, or what are you trying to get out of this, and then also like, what do you like? We're trying to add value to the audience as well, and that's what Ross is all about as well. So this right here, he's going to give you guys some practical advice that you can literally just take and apply today. So thanks for being on, Ross.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited, and yeah, the audience that you speak to are the people that I speak to every day and go to investor meetups for. So yeah, excited to bring as much value and knowledge and hopefully give the people a couple laughs as well through some
Yeah,
stories.
absolutely. Do me a favor, speaking to your microphone a little more.
Yep.
Perfect. All
Got it.
right. All right. So give me an idea. What do you do, and how'd you get to where you are?
Yeah, so I help business owners, real estate investors optimize their current spend. So their daily expenses and really taking that into translating it into free luxury travel. So thinking points and miles through credit cards. And why I say daily spend is sometimes people aren't putting some of those on credit cards. So that's where being able to take those points and miles and translate it into those rewards is really how we help you guys travel for free. So how'd I get here? Man, 14 years old. I started and on the real estate side, I started a lawn mowing business. So I really got the juices flowing from a creative for your real estate investors who might be doing creative stuff. I got the juices flowing from, hey, this person's yard is really high. I'm going to target them because they definitely need their yard cut. So I started that entrepreneur path of knocking on doors, figuring out, getting a nice little book of business. And then from there, translated that into a dog walking business. And then the investing piece started when I started to take that money when I had a few $1,000, put it in some 2, 3 year CDs. Shout out to my parents for, telling me to do that. But then took that and translated that into just my investing journey throughout this process. I probably shouldn't be here because I was a PE teacher. So my goal was to, you know, go shoot basketball, roll it out, do the new, read the newspaper. And when I got to college in my first semester, they said, hey, we're going to teach you how not to do that as a PE teacher. So I just quickly translated into, I'm going to be a sports administration major, which it's useless now. Um, so went into sales. Long story short, went into sales, traveled a lot, learned the ins and outs of the hotel airline programs, planned all our group trips, friend trips throughout North America for annual snowboarding trips, as well as over to Europe with a big group of guys. And then just pairing that with understanding the loyalty programs, paying for all the group trips with credit cards until a lot of my friends got smart enough to realize that I was racking up a ton of points. Learned the game. And then I stopped traveling for work when COVID hit. So I had to realize, hey, how do I strategically do this? Right. Like I'm not traveling, I'm not getting those. So how do I, and I'm seeing people on Instagram, since I like to travel, I'm obviously getting targeted for people who are like, oh, I spent 50, 60,000 points and saved $4,000 on my first class flight. So that got me down that rabbit hole of, okay, how do we optimize this? And at the same time, we started investing in real estate here in Charlotte. Bought our first townhome, which is a long-term rental in 2019. House hacked that, moved into a new property, which is in 2021. House hacked that as well. That's now a medium-term rental. Kept that furnished, and then purchased another condo 2022, purchased our townhome 2024, and purchased some raw land in 2020. So like learned all the ins and outs of the fun of closing costs, working with banks, underwriting, all of that. But at the same time, also made the mistakes with, contractors when they didn't take credit cards of when you wanted to do paints, rehabs, all that fun stuff and furnishing properties. So learned all of that through the process. And then everyone just kept asking the same questions of where do I go? How do I use my points? Points don't work. How do you, right? Like I'm spending all this money, but I'm doing it wrong. Like what should I do? And through that, it really just created my company Itinerary Boss, where we found where with business owners spending a decent amount of money, like that's where we can provide the most value and save them the most money and help them travel for free and get out of the day-to-day grind. I think that's the biggest thing is right. Take the wife who wants to go on a nice vacation, the wife or husband, right, who wants to go on a nice vacation, make them happy, keep the business rolling, save some money.
That's awesome. Are you doing this full time?
Yeah. Yeah. So I started this full time in April. So it's right around 6 months. It's been a fun time.
Nice. That's awesome. And so what were you doing like directly before this?
Yeah. So right before this, I was a healthcare enterprise software sales rep. So I was selling to large healthcare insurers. So Blue Shield of California, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona, those type of clients. And then prior to that, I worked with healthcare providers for 8, 9 years in the software medical device space.
Interesting. Um, did any of that experience translate over into your company now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the travel piece, obviously being on the road, having to map out my territory, like that's I can remember very clearly when my boss, I was an associate rep, had just gotten into the medical device field, was like 24, super nervous, like, oh my gosh, don't screw this up. This is like a lifetime, right? Everyone tries to get into that field. Like, so don't screw this up. And then my boss goes, oh, by the way, we're moving you to account manager. You get a brand new company car. Here's the keys. You have 6 states. Go figure it out. Here's your quote. And I'm like, oh shit. I like let me figure this out. So really just put me to the test of, and this was if ChatGPT, Perplexity, everything was there, like this would have been a cakewalk, but it was where you had to use Google Maps, right? Take Excel spreadsheets, Salesforce, all that. So I really had to figure that piece out, and planning that out helped me just going back to the airline hotels, figuring out those routes, what are best ways, how do you accumulate those? If you had a corporate card, how do you also get, how do you get those points from hotels and airlines? But then if you don't at another company, how do you then use your own card, right, to maximize those because they're reimbursing you? So that definitely taught me on the travel side. And then just from a sales perspective, being able to grow a business, right? Entrepreneurship. I mean, it's a roller coaster. So just knowing like, hey, you got to just keep at it every single day. If you build relationships, pipeline, brand authority, like, and just do what you actually love, like success is going to come from that. So yeah, absolutely. It played a huge part. And I wouldn't be here talking honestly here if I didn't go through those things. And I think it was all of the things, whether it was good or bad, really helped me to where I'm at today here.
That's awesome. All right. So from like a practical standpoint, what is it that Itinerary Boss does?
Yeah. So we really, again, help business owners optimize their credit card spend to turn that into free luxury travel. So we create, I mean, just from a overall standpoint, we put out 2 podcasts a week, right? We interview expert guests. We want to make sure we're bringing you the latest tips and tricks, stories, updates, and tools to make it as simple as possible. Because that's the biggest thing is 10 plus years of this, having to learn it on my own, go through blogs, go through podcasts, kind of duct tape it together. Like it's a lot of information. And whenever I talk to people, it's, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. So that's on that side from a content that goes out on YouTube. We try to put out, as much social media stuff as possible just to give those tips. But on the business owner side, that's where we really focus in on our attention mainly because that is where we can help the most. Because business owners, when they're spending a lot of money, a lot of the times the biggest things we see is it's either on ACH or debit because they don't want to pay, right? If you're an investor, a flipper, a developer, right, you may have materials, labor. You may not want to pay that through that because you don't want to hit the 3% fee. The challenge is a lot of the times you're looking at a 1%, 2% cash back card. And yeah, that doesn't make sense. But if you're looking at it from a, hey, I'm going to earn points that then I can transfer to a hotel or airline where I can get 2, 3, 4, 5 times my points. And yes, that is possible. Like, for example, 100,000 points, you can translate that into a $5,600 business class flight, over to Thailand. We just did it. Have plenty of people who do it. So that's one thing. And then other challenges people face are around just using them for Amazon gift cards, statement credits, stuff like that. So really just educating people along those lines. And then also if you have a Home Depot card, I think that's one thing. Like if you really like the bulk discounts, you're like, Ross, I'm never going to travel. I do not care. Okay, great. But if you're like, you know what, I do want to go on a trip and I just use that because it's the easy button, look at, what are you getting out of that? And if you do want to travel, I have a buddy who has a couple apartment complexes that he's like, I use this card and I get millions of points that they can use for travel. So those are some strategies to think through. On the personal side, the Home Depot is kind of a good analogy to the Costco card. You're getting that cash back, but if you're spending a ton on groceries for your family and you want to get points to travel, we use our Capital One Venture X. On the personal side, you could do the same for Home Depot on the business side if you wanted to for your business card. So just a couple things. That's where we really like to focus because those are the main big challenges that most people face, whether they're spending $100, whether they're spending 50,000, whether they're spending a million. Like it's always those same challenges.
So for let's say like a small business owner or even like someone who doesn't own a business, like what would you say is like the minimum threshold for someone like that spends per month for it to make sense to work with somebody like you?
Yeah, so to work with us in the accelerator program that we have, it's about 30 to 40,000 just to get those. But at the same time, and that's where I just like to be transparent. But at the same time, we just spent 500,000 points on a $20,000 honeymoon. And we didn't even optimize to the full maximum, right? Like we were on our honeymoon. So we wanted to stay at a couple boutique hotels that weren't your Hyatt, IHG, Marriott, Hilton, because they weren't in those destinations in Thailand. So we wanted to stay in some of those. If we had maximized to the most, we probably could have gotten 25,000. So like but those are, and we don't spend a ton of money personally on our cards. A lot of the times it's in either does our business. Like my business probably spent maybe 10 to 15,000 last year. It was from two welcome offers from a real estate property that we purchased and furnished where we had 100,000 welcome bonus from the Chase Unlimited Inc. And then from Itinerary Boss, $100,000 or 100,000 point welcome bonus. So both those translated into $11,200 flights. So that's kind of, yeah, 200,000 Chase points. So that's kind of how you don't have to spend that much, but I always like to just be transparent because I don't want to say, hey, if you're doing this, I can guarantee that you're going to get this. So that when you spend that much, that's where it gets really fun. But if you are on the personal spot side and you do spend a decent amount, that's definitely where we can help.
Okay, cool. So, all right, talk to me more about your accelerator program. So, like, costs, what to cover, how long is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's $5,000. It's a one-time fee, but that gets you. So it's a 5-week program, right? We want to get you actionable results. There's 5 people in it. It's launching in October. So we have a couple clients that gave us feedback that said, hey, this would be great. I want to connect with, other people who are like-minded business owners. And I've found from other masterminds I'm in that organically, a lot of the times that leads to just relationships, business deals. I have a lot of high spending net worth clients who also are looking to passively invest in real estate. So I'm like, why don't I bring you the guys who do that full time? But it's 5 weeks. And really it's just a setup of first we map out what's the right card stack that you guys need to get, right? If you're getting 1 times the points on something, how do we get you 2, 3, 4, right? If you're doing ads, materials, things like that, like we align that to your specific spend, as well as if there are, if you guys if people are spending a lot more, what are the cards that might have a cap? How do we make sure that you aren't getting hit with a credit line, max from Chase? So we look at all those things and make sure we set you up for success right off the bat. Then we have, our second workshop is organizational tools. How do you track all these points, right? What are the best tools to then go in and transfer your points so you get maximum value? How do you set up alerts so you're not having to at midnight think through, oh, great, this flight's here, but we might have to go this time, right? Like, so being able to set up specific alerts so you're going to get maximum value, as well as there's something that are called transfer bonuses. So if you have, so just think of it like 30% off. So if I have Capital One miles, we'll use Qatar because that's, a lot of people are familiar with that. Say there's a 30% off sale and you have, 100,000 points and there's a 30% bonus, you can transfer those over and get, right, more value from your miles. So like strategies like that, we set you up with all these systems and alerts that are going to set you up for success where you're not having to manually go through and search this and do that, which most people do. And that's honestly what I did for years. So that's just right off the bat. So you're set up for success. And then we talk through in our third workshop, we start to talk through different transfer partners, right? How does everything glue together and make it super simple for you? And that's what I like about having 5 to 10 people in that program. It's not 100 where everyone's located across, right, all over the world where I'm like, okay, we got to figure this out. It's most people want to go to the same destinations. They also, the main hubs out of the US are going to most of the same destinations they want to go to. So we share that part. And then then we'd go into transfer partners. Like, how do you do this? Like going through live recordings of doing that, helping you master that, showing specific use cases. And then at the end, we do redemptions. That final workshop, we do redemptions of, hey, you want to go to Italy and Lake Como. We're going to go full scale of how we're doing this, how we would book hotels. And then at the end, you get a full deliverable of all the recordings. You get everything that's mapped out. And a lot of times, a lot of people have assistants that they're like, hey, they book everything for us. I just want to be there on maybe 1 or 2 calls, have everything recorded, send it to me, have my assistant, or if my spouse is the one who's like the visionary who wants to travel, does all this already, she'll come or he'll come and they'll, learn how to do this piece. And then we give a full, PDF deliverable. That way you're walking away with here's actionable tips. And then we have a bonus that it's a 45-minute just point strategy session where say you said, hey, Ross, I want to go to Italy next year, right? Okay, cool. Let's go on. You're going to, you have Amex, Capital One, Chase points. We're going to go from beginning to end. I'm going to show you exactly what to do. And we're going to, knock that out. You're going to be on your way. And then you're set up for success. So that's where that's at now. And we've gotten a lot of feedback that, once people start to do that, does it make sense to have a community that's ongoing for only the people who have gone through the accelerator program to kind of build that networking effect? Also, if people want to connect with one another, share stories, share that, have more support. That's something that is in the process on the back end that we are starting to build out as well.
Man, that's a lot. That's a lot of value that you're providing people, and you're literally like just helping them book their trips too.
Yeah, so we don't book the actual trips. So don't think of us as a travel agent. We are really teaching you to fish on steroids like Michael Jordan does with his big boat. And then once you do it, the biggest challenge, honestly, is figuring out what tools to use, what transfers to what, how to use them, right? When to transfer. So like all of that stuff, that's where we help you overcome that and break through years of noise, and honestly save you lots and lots of time and money. Cause trust me, there's been many mistakes and there's some things also that pop up that we want to make you aware of as well.
Man. All right. So I know you mentioned like ChatGPT, Perplexity, stuff like that. What are you doing in regards to AI? And this is mainly me just asking because I'm interested about it myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So when ChatGPT came out in 20, like when it hit hit all social media in November 2022, I was in my sales role. I'm like, okay, how do I leverage this for emails? How do I leverage this as my own assistant? So I started to build out stuff for that. And then when I got this going, in October of 2023, started to build out just specific things for every, use case that we're doing. So whether that's our podcast, we have our own podcast chat where then we have specific, so projects. If you go into projects, we have a podcast folder. It could be, keyword research for the title. It could be description. It could be affiliate links. It could be, right. So we have like little SOPs built out around that. And then same thing for LinkedIn, social media, like brainstorming, storytelling, frameworks, all of that type of stuff. For coaching, I think that this is something that's really good. We use Fathom Note Taker. That's great because it gives you the transcription, it gives you the summary. And then we actually have a sales coach that we have a specific rubric format. So when we're talking to people, right, how do we do on that call? And it really just helps us make sure that we're just being as clear as possible when we are having those conversations, and making it as easy as possible too when we're coaching people of, okay, how do we not overwhelm people with all this amazing information? How do we just keep it simple, right, and get them actionable results? So that's another piece. But yeah, just across the workflow, that podcast one is, that's probably the best. And that's really similar for LinkedIn, how we write, right, frameworks, YouTube, going through. Nice part is I have a VA who I actually bought when he first started. I created an SOP, like a mini course for him, and created like the prompts. So he wasn't just going in and learning on his own. It was like, no, here's exactly what's in mine. We have pay for a Teams plan. He has that where he goes out, created some videos. We use ClickUp. So they have clips. So if you use Loom, think of Loom built into ClickUp. So if I'm doing something like, you know what, I need to give some feedback, or this is a new, SOP. So, for example, we're offloading a lot of our LinkedIn content creation where they're doing a lot of the writing, and then we're going back through and doing like the editing, but being able to give feedback there. And then within there, there's some AI stuff that'll actually transcribe the video. It'll create SOPs. You can create, and then we have a chat within ClickUp that we can send over. So we have within those different folders that I mentioned, podcast, YouTube, LinkedIn, all that, I can send him, hey, can you go check this out, and all that. And then now there's actually some agents that you can build out as well. So we're doing that with Zapier. So we actually are part of a ClickUp membership community that actually is free. It's built by the guy who he was on like the product team at ClickUp. So building out automations. How do you build out agents in ClickUp? How do you automate things? How do you connect that with Zapier and have an entire workflow? And some of the stuff he's built is really awesome. So if you are interested in that, definitely check it out. And he's actually built out a social media template too. So if you are trying to figure out, hey, this is I'm trying to have like a schedule, I'm trying to like do this across multiple platforms, it's really helpful. I bought it for my VA, just that way he's just from a structure standpoint, it just makes it super simple. So if you are creating a lot of that content, you can repurpose that and just keep it going, and make their lives a little bit easier. So on those are the main things. He handles all the Zapier automations, agents. I don't really touch that. I just say, hey, here's the workflow. When there's stuff where they need my input, I show up and I tell them, hey, like this is kind of how I would like to operate. They go, make it work. And there's fine tuning, right? You can't just create an agent and think it's going to go do everything. You're training someone. So like we're in the process, we're probably 2 months in of that piece. And like each week I'm hopping on a call to make sure, we're fine tuning. Hey, this is what I would like. And the team's great. So I think if you do start to create agents, don't get frustrated when you first start. I think that's probably the biggest thing. It's just like training an employee or a new hire. Like you have to put in the work and give them that feedback. And then you're going to get the output. But if you don't, and you give up too early, like agents are going to be the way, right? Like I plan on having, a couple people on my team, then I'm having an army of agents that goes and does a lot of this stuff. So I can focus on the business. And then Perplexity, a lot of it just for search. But yeah, I love Perplexity. If I need just something that I know I'm going to need like 10 probably prompts that I'm going to go through, I'll definitely do research there. Then on the podcast, like podcast guest research, coming up with questions, different things like that.
There's a lot to unpack there. All right, so for people who don't know, what is ClickUp?
ClickUp is a project management software system. Yep. So
And then
if you're familiar with, so if people might be familiar with Asana, Monday.com, those. So it's very similar. I personally like it better. I tried Asana. ClickUp just has a lot of features inside of it. I was at a conference last week too, where a lot of people may use Notion too, but a lot of people have switched to ClickUp. So I would just suggest if you don't have one, getting one, depending on what line of work you are in, if you do need that software.
cool. And then you mentioned agents. So give me, an idea of like what can an agent do for a small business owner?
Pretty much. I mean, honestly, think of it like think of it like, okay, so if you have a virtual assistant or if you have just an employee, it can go out and do a lot of those things. You can create rules. So simple things like people might be familiar with Zapier. If you're not, you can create rules. You can create automations where, let's just say, for example, you know, you're inviting me to a podcast and you wanted to send me an invite, you want to send me questions, you want me to send a follow-up, right? You can do sometimes that through Calendly, but if there isn't, an ability to do that, you could set up other specific rules. That would be a simple automation. An agent can actually go out and take action on your behalf. So say, for example, for me, we've built out something where, I get a lot of warm referrals for podcast. So for me, it's the same thing, right? If someone comes in, hey, you should go on Ross podcast, this is their background, great. So for me, it's usually the same simple message. So building that out where if I have 8, podcasts that come in, I go, okay, I'm batch recording all of those episodes in 1 week. 8, I send them a message in ClickUp chat, say, hey, we're batch recording on this date. Can you go reply to all these people? And then send them this link to go book. And then that way, right, they're doing that for me. So I'm not spending however many minutes or hours replying to some of those emails. So that's just like a very simple use case. And that's what I suggest, right, is get yourself a, calendar, email assistant is like, and then build off that. Because if you try to go and say, hey, I'm going to build 15 different use cases, things are going to break, you're going to get overwhelmed. So start there, build off that. And then from there, you can start to think through what makes the most sense for my business. And that's where we're starting to get more into the back end process of where for my VA, the podcast side of things it's just very SOP driven. So he does the same exact thing. So now it's how do we go get that clip? How do we post that on social? How do we create a caption? How do we then right tag the person? How do we, send that automated? So we're consistently, just building that out. Those are a couple simple use cases we're doing. And right when we look at the business, I always look back a month after and where's a lot of my time going? And then we decide, hey, that's what we're going to build off. Or my VA, hey, what do you struggle with? What do you hate? Right? Like, where do you get what gets you excited to get up in the morning and be creative? And then from there, we build that off because that's where he's going to do his best work. That's where I'm going to do my best work.
All right. So for someone who, is wants to get into like AI or wants to start learning how to like build agents, stuff like that, what kind of advice would you give them as far as like research or any like good websites, to start learning essentially from scratch?
Yeah, for sure. So I would check out, there's a podcast that I really like. It's called The Next Wave. I would start from the beginning. That's a good one. They are always giving updates. They kind of and they do a really good job of maybe doing interviews, giving their advice. So I would start there. I would start from the beginning. Don't start now because, right, like they do a good job of getting you prepped. If you want a daily newsletter, I subscribe to the Neuron. That's a good one. But I know we were talking before, don't try to read that every day and then go test out all 25 tools, right? Like figure out where do I need to implement some automations, some things that can get me out of the day to day and will help me out, and then put those into your business. I probably use 5 to 7 tools total in my business. So that's where just thinking through what's going to be most relevant. And then just go on YouTube. And I mean, you can find plenty of playlists if you search ChatGPT, Claude, which is Anthropic. That's really good for like writing. And Perplexity is really good for search. And then Google, honestly, is coming out with some amazing stuff. So if you have Google Workspace, Gemini, stuff in your docs, like so I think that's the thing is don't go try 35. There's 2 or 3 big players that are just consistently build out new stuff. So just start using it. I think that would be my biggest, get started using it and you'll figure out quickly, like this is what works. And don't get frustrated if the prompts don't work you just got to always continue to fine tune, right? You get in what you put, or you get out what you put in.
Yeah, it's funny. I was telling Ross before the show, like I'm starting to like go to like different like AI webinars and some stuff like that. And so one of the like best like practical like pieces of advice that somebody gave was figure out what the constraint is in your business, and then find the tool, because there's a million different tools out there that can do a different million things, and it could be overwhelming. But instead, just reverse engineer it, figure out like what's the one thing that you need right now to implement, and then go ahead and find like the best tool for it. Because even when you're doing that process, there's still going to be like 5 to 10 tools that can do what you need to do, and just figure out, just pick one and just run it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, I was definitely one of those people who was, and I'm telling this from personal experiences. I was one of those people who's like, I got to read every tool. I got to go check it out. And that was when AI was coming up and I was growing my business. But now, I read those newsletters and listen to those podcasts more for like the news updates. Hey, this is what's coming. Not so much, hey, here's the latest and greatest tools. Cause yeah, there are agent tools, but you know, you got to build, it takes a ton of time to build them out. So my suggestion would be, if you're looking for just kind of a simple solution, hit me up. I can connect you with Joe and his community. They do a phenomenal job. They have daily office hours. They have templates, stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
All right, cool. Any advice that you would give to as far as entrepreneurs? Like I know some of the things that's being pushed right now is like how to start an AI business, and stuff like that. Any advice, like if someone is trying to start an AI business, what would what would you tell them to do?
Um, honestly, me personally, I don't feel like I have enough experience there in starting an AI specific business. I would just think through, what do you like? Where do you also like? What do you like doing first? I think that's the most important thing. Like, I personally really enjoyed seeing people light up when we would go on those trips. But at the same time, I didn't want to be a travel agent where everyone's calling me at midnight, like, "Hey, this didn't work." Right? So you have to think of what do you like, and then what are you good at, and where do you feel like what will keep you going. So I think thinking through that, learning, if you are experienced with AI, learning, how then can I utilize this, and then what does my business model look like, right? Like, how can I monetize this? Because I think the challenge is there's so many different AI companies coming that, and all the valuations, because it's this huge boom, it is going to be a lot of competition, and there are going to be some, like, you're also competing against some of the biggest players in the world, where you got Zuckerberg stroking 9-figure checks to bring over OpenAI's people. So it's like, you got to kind of think through that. But if you know how to leverage AI, so like for me, I kind of an AI consultant, right? Like, I know how to use it. I know how to then use it in my business. But also, if you're a consultant salesperson, you're figuring out problems and you can go implement AI into those. That's huge. And for real estate investors, I think the biggest thing is, you got a lot of mom and pops who was talking to, I was out at FinCon. I was talking to Tony Robinson, the host of the Real Estate Rookie podcast from Bigger Pockets. He's like, dude, we're buying up hotels and we're targeting specifically seller finance deals, because a lot of these mom and pops are faxing in some of some of their things. There's no technology. And I listen to Rich Summers a lot in the boutique hotel investing space. And same thing. It's like, if you go find a deal, and they're like, for most of your listeners, if they are investors doing creative stuff, like, if they're tired and you can bring them a solution, and you also can, put lipstick on that, and then you're going to be able to streamline that and start to add revenue to it and add value. If you can go in and, you know, do value add, whether it's a rehab, whether it's just putting in the right processes, like, that's where I see the opportunity for investors. And if I wasn't doing this full time, like, that's where, I would be focusing my attention. Small businesses too, I think that's an opportunity. There's a guy actually I met last week at FinCon, and I'll share his name's David Barnett. He does a lot of YouTube on it, and he does overcome all the social media hype of like, go buy, Cody Sanchez does it, go buy this $12,000 business and you'll be making millions right off the bat. That's not how it works, right? So I think it's good to go check out those type of resources and figure out, what makes the most sense for you, what is sustainable, what do you like, and then leverage AI to do that, because it's really a tool to make you more productive and build out a team and build out a business. But if you really want to build out an AI company, go for it. But I personally, like, that's just not what I'm experienced in and knowledgeable in. So I can't give a ton of advice on that piece.
Yeah, but it's smart, like practical advice of like figure out what the problem is and then see how AI can like fit into it as a solution. So that's awesome, man. All right. So how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm on Itinerary Boss at all socials. Itineraryboss.com is my website. And then I shared with Faisal the real estate downloadable. So it's a free points and miles cheat sheet that'll get you into our weekly newsletter where we put out just super valuable content. We're not just spamming you with different deals, right? We're actually like getting you through, hey, you're just starting out, what's super simple, and providing you the tools and resources to meet you where you're at. And if you are a high spending business owner and you're like, hey, Ross, I want to fast track all of this and I spend a lot of money, shoot me a DM and I can send you over the group accelerator program and happy to hop on a call and walk you through it and answer any questions. And I do want to put in there too, because I focused more on the real estate investor side. But if you are personally buying stuff, something you can do too is just think of if you do have an upcoming home purchase, if and you're trying to buy appliances, if you're trying to buy furniture, and closing costs can be kind of a pain sometimes, right? So thinking through if there's 0% interest cards to give you a little bit of just extra time. The Chase Freedom Unlimited is really good. And if you have other Chase cards like the Chase Sapphire Preferred or Reserve, you actually can combine those points together and transfer them. So that's one. And then also, if you are paying contractors, whether that's through personal for they're coming to do painting, rehabs, any of that. There's something called Plastique, and that's with a Q. Actually, a bunch of guys from Amex created it because they saw a gap in that market. And then if you are a business owner, Melio, Melio, that's one that you can use. If your vendor doesn't take cards, and you can send that over for the things we just talked about. And if your vendor does take cards and that 3%, if you have a card in place that does get points, I would suggest using that. But if you have questions, you're like, hey, I only think I get one times the points, like hit me up, happy to help. And I put out a ton of content that kind of talks through a lot of that. And we have actually a podcast that we specifically did for that.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, this has been an amazing podcast. I appreciate all of like your practical advice and like the way you think. Again, reach out to Ross if you guys have any questions. And again, my name is Faisal. Check out pinpointskip.com. Appreciate you guys listening in.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ross.